The message is already typed. No worries, it's totally fine. You stare at it for a second. Then you send it, even though it wasn't fine. Even though they canceled on you for the third time. Even though a small part of you wanted to say, actually, that hurt. But you don't, because saying that feels risky. And maybe that's where people-pleasing begins. Not in some dramatic childhood memory, not in a life-changing moment, but in tiny moments like this. Moments where honesty feels more dangerous than silence, where you swallow disappointment, where you smooth things over, where you convince yourself that keeping the peace is the same thing as being kind. And for a long time, it can feel like it is. After all, what's wrong with being nice? What's wrong with making people comfortable? What's wrong with putting others first? Nothing. Until you start noticing a strange pattern. The people who seem the nicest aren't always the happiest. They're the ones answering messages they don't want to answer, agreeing to plans they don't want to attend, laughing when they're annoyed, apologizing for things that aren't their fault. And somehow, despite spending so much energy making everyone else comfortable, they're exhausted. Which raises an uncomfortable question. What if people-pleasing isn't actually about other people? At first, that sounds ridiculous. People-pleasers spend their entire lives focused on other people, their opinions, their reactions, their feelings. So how could it not be about them? But look a little closer. Imagine someone asks you for a favor. You immediately say yes, not because you want to help, not because you have the time, but because the idea of disappointing them makes your stomach drop. Who is that decision really protecting? Them or you? Because in that moment, you're not helping because you genuinely want to. You're helping because you're trying to avoid something. Disapproval, conflict, rejection. Suddenly, the behavior that looks selfless becomes something else entirely. Not generosity, protection. And that's the strange thing about people-pleasing. It often wears the same clothes as kindness. From the outside, they can look identical. Two people can do the exact same thing. Both can say yes. Both can offer help. Both can put someone else first. But one is acting from care. The other is acting from fear. One person is thinking, I want to help. The other is thinking, I can't say no. Same action, completely different reason. And that reason changes everything. Because real kindness is a choice. Fear doesn't feel like one. Fear feels like an invisible hand guiding your decisions before you've even made them. It convinces you that keeping everyone happy is your responsibility, that conflict is dangerous, that disappointing someone is somehow a failure. So you become skilled at reading rooms, managing emotions, predicting reactions, avoiding tension before it even appears. People often call this being considerate. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's something else. Sometimes it's survival. Not physical survival, social survival. Human beings are wired for connection. For most of history, being excluded from the group could be genuinely dangerous. And even though rejection today usually means an awkward conversation or a hurt feeling, your brain doesn't always get the memo. Part of you still reacts as if acceptance equals safety. And if acceptance feels like safety, then people-pleasing starts making perfect sense. Of course you'd avoid upsetting people. Of course you'd shape yourself into whatever keeps the connection intact. Of course you'd become the version of yourself that's easiest to love. But eventually, that strategy creates a problem so gradual you might not notice it happening. The biggest cost of people-pleasing isn't that people take advantage of you. It's that you slowly lose track of yourself. Think about it. If your first instinct is always, what do they want? How often do you stop to ask, what do I want? If you're constantly adjusting yourself to fit other people's expectations, at what point do your own preferences become unclear? Your opinions, your boundaries, your needs, your voice. You spend so much time becoming who everyone else needs you to be that eventually you're not entirely sure who you are when nobody else is around. And that's where the hidden cost appears, because people-pleasing promises connection, but often creates distance. Not distance from other people, distance from yourself. And here's the twist. The thing you're doing to keep relationships alive can quietly make them less real. Because if you're always agreeing, people don't know your actual opinions. If you're always saying yes, people don't know your actual limits. If you're constantly filtering yourself through what others might approve of, people don't know you. They know the version of you that feels safest to show, which leads to one of the loneliest experiences a person can have, being surrounded by people who care about you while secretly wondering whether they'd still care if they saw the real you. And that's the trap. People-pleasing tells you, hide parts of yourself and you'll be accepted. But acceptance built on hiding isn't really acceptance at all. Because the moment you have to perform for love, you can never be fully sure the love is for you. So, are you kind? Or are you afraid? The answer is probably both. Most people are. This isn't about becoming cold or selfish or refusing to help anyone. Real kindness still matters, maybe more than ever. But real kindness doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't demand that you betray your own feelings. It doesn't ask you to abandon yourself every time someone else has a need. The difference isn't in what you do, it's in why you do it. And maybe that's the question worth asking. The next time you're about to say yes, pause, just for a second, and ask yourself, if I knew this person wouldn't reject me, would I still do this? If the answer is yes, that's probably kindness. If the answer is no, fear might be making the decision. Because becoming less of a people pleaser isn't really about learning how to say no. It's about learning that rejection isn't fatal. It's realizing that disappointing someone doesn't make you a bad person. It's understanding that honesty and kindness can exist at the same time. And maybe the deepest realization is this. People pleasers spend years trying not to lose people. But somewhere along the way, they start losing themselves. Not all at once, just little pieces. A preference here, a boundary there, a truth left unsaid. Until one day they wake up exhausted, wondering why being loved still feels lonely. And the answer might be that they've been protecting the connection for so long, they forgot to protect the person inside it. Because a relationship that only works when you hide parts of yourself was never truly accepting you. And the people worth keeping were never asking you to disappear in the first place.